The invitation arrived on a Tuesday, cream-coloured cardstock, embossed gold lettering, the kind of paper stock that whispers expensive before you even read the words. You are cordially invited to celebrate Thanksgiving at the residence of Mr. and Mrs. Jonathan Hayes. My brother's name, his wife's control. I turned it over in my hands, feeling the weight of exclusion pressed into every fibre. Because my name? Nowhere on it. My husband's name? Absent. My two daughters, Jonathan's own nieces, girls he'd held as newborns, taught to ride bikes, read bedtime stories to? Not even mentioned. At the bottom, in that same pretentious calligraphy, it read, "An intimate gathering for immediate family only." Immediate family. I'd shared a womb wall with Jonathan for 9 months. We'd split the same amniotic sac, fought over Halloween candy, survived our parents' divorce side by side. I was his twin sister. And according to Madison, his wife of 3 years, I wasn't immediate enough. This is the story of how I went from banned guest to the woman who made sure Madison's pristine, picture-perfect family empire crumbled into dust so fine, even the wind wouldn't carry it away. If you've ever been excluded, dismissed, or erased by someone who thought they held all the power, this story is for you. Hit that like button right now, subscribe if you believe karma is real, and buckle up, because what happened next is the kind of justice that makes your soul do a victory lap. Let me paint you a picture of Madison, 5'9", blonde hair that always looked professionally blown out, even on casual Sundays. The kind of woman who wore athleisure that cost more than my car payment and never, ever broke a sweat. She collected designer handbags the way some people collect refrigerator magnets, and her Instagram, curated like a museum exhibition titled, "How to Live Better Than You." When Jonathan first brought her home 4 years ago, I tried. God, I tried. I smiled through her subtle comments about my quaint neighbourhood, nodded politely when she forgot to include my family in group texts about get-togethers, ignored the way she'd post photos of her family, her parents, her sister, her perfectly matched nieces and nephews, and captioned them things like, "Blood makes you related, loyalty makes you family." The irony? She was using Jonathan's actual blood family as props in her photos, while systematically cutting us out behind the scenes. It started small. First, it was Christmas at her parents' house, instead of rotating like we'd done for 32 years. Jonathan apologized, said Madison's mum was having a hard time and needed them close. Fine, family comes first, right? Then it was Madison's birthday party, a lavish backyard affair with a champagne tower and a live jazz band, where she invited everyone from Jonathan's office, her book club, her Pilates instructor. But somehow my invitation got lost in the mail. I found out about it from Facebook, photos of my brother, arm around Madison, surrounded by people I'd never met, all toasting to her brilliance. When I called Jonathan, he sighed like I was being dramatic. "Mara, it was just a small thing. You know how Madison is. She gets overwhelmed with planning. It wasn't personal." But it was personal, because every erasure, every exclusion, every "oops, we forgot" was a deliberate choice. Madison didn't forget. Madison curated. She was building her ideal family portrait, and I, along with my husband Derek and our daughters, didn't fit the aesthetic. The day my dad died, everything crystallized. Dad's funeral was held on a grey October morning, the kind where the sky looks like it's holding back tears out of politeness. I'd spent 3 days planning it, choosing the casket, writing the obituary, coordinating with the funeral home, the florist, the caterer for the reception. Jonathan was too overwhelmed to help, he said. Madison needed him. She was taking Dad's death really hard. Really hard. She'd met my father twice, but sure, she was devastated. The service was beautiful, despite everything. Dad would have hated the fuss. He was a simple man, a retired mechanic who preferred Bud Light and baseball games to anything requiring a tie. But Mum had passed 4 years earlier, and he'd saved money for a decent send-off. So we gave him one. Afterward, at the reception, I watched Madison work the room. That's the only way to describe it. Work. She floated between groups, tissues delicately pressed to her dry eyes, accepting condolences like she was the grieving daughter. She wore black Chanel, because of course she did, and kept her hand possessively on Jonathan's arm, steering him away any time I got close. I was standing by the memory table, looking at photos of Dad holding newborn me and Jonathan, when my daughter Lily tugged my sleeve. "Mom," she whispered, "Aunt Madison said we're not invited to Thanksgiving." My heart stopped. What? I asked her about it, because last year Uncle Jonathan promised he'd teach me how to make his special stuffing. But she said this year is immediate family only, and that means just her family and Uncle Jonathan. Lily was 10, and she was staring up at me with confusion in her hazel eyes, my father's eyes, trying to understand why she'd just been uninvited from a family tradition by a woman who'd married into it 3 years ago. I felt something in my chest crack, not break, not shatter, just crack, like the first fracture in a windshield that will eventually spiderweb into something irreparable. I found Jonathan in the kitchen, loosening his tie, looking exhausted. "John, we need to talk." He glanced at the doorway nervously. "Can it wait? Madison's not feeling well. I think we're going to head out soon." "Did you tell Madison to uninvite my kids from Thanksgiving?" His face did that thing, that guilty but defensive thing that men do when they know they're wrong but don't want to admit it. "It wasn't like that." "Then what was it like?" "Madison she wanted a smaller gathering this year. You know how holidays stress her out. She thought if we kept it to just her parents, her sister's family and us, it would be more manageable." "Her parents, her sister's family, and you?" "Mara, I'm your twin, Jonathan. I held your hand during Mum's funeral. I helped you study for your bar exam. I was the first person you called when you got engaged, and now I'm not immediate family?" "You're twisting this." "Am I?" He ran a hand through his hair and I saw it, the resignation, the defeat. He'd already had this fight with Madison, and he'd lost. Or worse, he'd chosen not to fight at all. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I'll talk to her. Maybe we can do something separate, just us." "Separate?" "Yeah, like maybe the weekend after. We could—" "Get out." "What?" "Get out of Dad's house. Take your wife and leave." Jonathan's face hardened. "You don't mean that." "I've never meant anything more in my life." He stared at me for a long moment, then shook his head, grabbed his coat, and left. I didn't cry. Not then. Not at the funeral. Not when Derek found me standing alone in the kitchen, staring at the wall where Dad used to hang his "World's Okayest Dad" mug. I just felt cold. And in that coldness, a decision formed. Madison wanted to erase me? Fine. Let's see how she likes being erased. Here's the thing about people who perform perfection. They're exhausting. Because perfection isn't real, it's a mask. And if you wear a mask long enough, you forget where the mask ends and your real face begins. You make mistakes, you leave cracks, and if someone's paying attention, really, truly paying attention, they find those cracks. I became a detective, not the kind with a badge, I started with social media. Madison's Instagram was public, 2,000 plus followers, all carefully cultivated. Every post was an aesthetic marvel. Flat lays of coffee and macarons, candid shots of her reading by the pool, always the same 3 pages of whatever book was trending. Photos of her and Jonathan looking like a J. Crew ad. But comments? Those were gold. People loved Madison online, except for one account, at truthteller_2019. This account left comments on several of Madison's older posts, nothing recent, all from about 2 years ago, and they were pointed. Interesting how you can afford Hermes when you still owe me $4,000. Does Jonathan know about Miami? Must be nice to reinvent yourself. Some of us remember who you really were. Madison had deleted most of them, but the internet is forever, and Google Cache is a beautiful thing. I screenshotted everything. Then I went deeper. Madison's maiden name was Madison Colette Pruitt. A quick search pulled up her hometown, Scottsdale, Arizona. Her parents, Richard and Diane Pruitt, owned a commercial real estate company. Wealthy, well-connected, the kind of family that summered in Martha's Vineyard and wintered in Aspen. Madison fit the mold perfectly, except she hadn't always. I found her college roommate on Facebook, a woman named Ashley Kern, who tagged Madison in a throwback photo from their sophomore year at Arizona State. They were at a party, red Solo cups in hand, Madison wearing a crop top and a smile that looked genuinely carefree. I messaged Ashley. "Hi, I'm Madison's sister-in-law, planning a surprise for her birthday and trying to gather fun stories from her past. Would you be willing to share any memories?" Ashley replied within an hour. "Oh wow, I haven't talked to Mads in years. We had a falling out junior year. But sure, I've got stories. Call me." We talked for 90 minutes, and let me tell you, the Madison Ashley knew? She was nothing like the Madison I'd met. According to Ashley, college Madison was messy. Not in a charming, "oops, I forgot to do my homework" way, in a manipulative, boundary-stomping, credit card-stealing way. She borrowed money from everyone, Ashley said, and she never paid it back. She'd cry, say her parents cut her off, that she was struggling, and people felt bad for her, you know? But then she'd show up with a new designer bag or post photos from some weekend trip to Vegas. Did you ever confront her? Once. She gaslit me so hard I questioned my own bank statements, told me I was misremembering, that I was the one who owed her. We stopped talking after that. What about Miami? There was a pause. How do you know about Miami? Someone mentioned it online. I wasn't sure what it meant. Ashley. Okay, so junior year, Madison started dating this guy, Brett. He was older, had money, worked in finance. They were together for like a year and she was obsessed, talked about marrying him, the whole thing. What happened? She cheated on him, in Miami, during spring break, with his best friend. My mouth fell open. Brett found out because someone posted photos on Facebook. Madison tried to deny it, but the evidence was everywhere. He dumped her, obviously. She spiraled hard after that. Took a semester off, moved back home. When she came back senior year, she was different, colder, more calculated. That's when she started curating her image, deleting old posts, distancing herself from anyone who knew the real her. I thanked Ashley profusely and hung up. Then I kept digging. I found Brett. He was living in San Diego now, married with 2 kids, working as a financial analyst. I messaged him on LinkedIn, posing as a freelance journalist working on a piece about reinvention and personal growth. He didn't bite, but his wife did. Turns out, Madison had tried to reconnect with Brett a year into her marriage with Jonathan, sent him messages on Instagram, told him she still thought about him, that she'd made a mistake. Brett's wife, Jen, had screenshots, and she was more than happy to share them. "If this helps expose her for the snake she is, I'm all in," Jen wrote. I now had evidence of Madison's pattern of borrowing money and not repaying it, screenshots of her trying to reconnect with an ex while married, testimonies from multiple people describing manipulative behavior. But I needed more. I needed something that would hit Jonathan where it hurt. So I hired a private investigator. His name was Rick Delaney, retired cop turned PI. 60-something, gruff voice, charged $150 an hour plus expenses. I gave him everything I had on Madison and asked him to dig deeper. 3 weeks later, he called me. "You're gonna want to sit down for this," Rick said. I sat. "Your sister-in-law has a sealed record." My heart jumped. "What?" "Juvenile record, sealed when she turned 18. I've got contacts who owe me favors. Let's just say I found out what's in it." "What is it?" "Theft. She was 16, stole credit cards from her mother's friends during a country club luncheon, racked up about $12,000 in charges before she got caught. Daddy's lawyers made it disappear, but it happened." I felt dizzy. "There's more," Rick continued. "Madison's parents? They're not as loaded as they pretend to be. The company's bleeding money. They've remortgaged their house twice. Richard Pruitt's got a gambling problem, lost big in Vegas about 5 years ago. They're keeping up appearances, but barely." "How does Madison afford her lifestyle?" "Your brother." "Of course." "Jonathan's been bankrolling her for 3 years. The Chanel, the Cartier, the trips to Napa, it's all on his dime. And here's the kicker. Madison has her own credit cards, 3 of them, maxed out. She's about $40,000 in debt." "Does Jonathan know?" "I doubt it. She's good at hiding it. Separate bank accounts. She intercepts the statements." I thanked Rick, paid his invoice, and sat in my car for 20 minutes, processing. Madison wasn't just controlling, she was a con artist. And my brother had no idea. I didn't want to just tell Jonathan, because here's what I'd learned about my brother over 32 years. He's loyal to a fault. If I went to him with accusations, he'd defend Madison. He'd rationalize, he'd make excuses. I needed him to see it, undeniably, irrefutably. So I set a trap. I started by creating a fake Facebook profile, used a stock photo, generic name, Jessica Harmon. I sent Madison a friend request from this account, along with a message. "Hi, Madison. I think we met at the charity gala last year. You mentioned you were looking for a personal stylist. I'd love to chat." Madison accepted within an hour. We messaged back and forth. I played the part of an eager, starstruck stylist who was obsessed with Madison's aesthetic. I complimented her taste, asked about her favorite designers, built rapport. Then, casually, I mentioned, "I'm actually working on a project about women entrepreneurs. Would you be open to an interview? I'd love to feature your story." She jumped at it. We scheduled a coffee date. I showed up with a voice recorder, which I told her was for accuracy, and asked her questions about her life, her marriage, her goals. And Madison, high on attention and validation, talked. She bragged about how she'd trained Jonathan to prioritize her needs, laughed about how she'd convinced him to cut back on time with his overbearing family, casually mentioned that she'd used his credit card to buy a Birkin bag and told him it was a gift from her parents. I recorded every word. Then I went for the kill. "What about your family? I know you're close with them." Madison's smile tightened. "Oh, extremely close. Family is everything to me." "That's so beautiful. I actually found some old photos of you online, college days. You look like you were having so much fun. Do you still keep in touch with those friends?" Her face changed. Just a flicker, but I saw it. Not really. People change. I've outgrown that version of myself. Of course, growth is so important. Though I did see some interesting comments on your Instagram. Someone mentioned Miami. Madison's eyes went cold. I don't know what you're talking about. Oh, maybe I'm misremembering. Anyway, I think we're done here. She stood abruptly, grabbed her purse and left without another word. I smiled, because she'd just confirmed everything. Thanksgiving arrived. I wasn't invited, obviously, but Jonathan, he'd been invited to my house. I sent him a text 2 days before the holiday. John, I know things have been strained, but I miss you. I miss us. Can we please talk? Come over Thursday morning, just you, please. He agreed. Thursday morning, Jonathan showed up at my door looking tired, older somehow. Hey, he said quietly. Hey, come in. We sat at my kitchen table. I poured him coffee the way he liked it, 2 sugars, no cream, and slid a folder across the table. What's this? He asked. Just look. He opened it. Inside were printouts, screenshots of Madison's messages to Brett, Ashley's testimony, the credit card statements Rick had obtained, legally through public records tied to a lawsuit Madison's parents had settled, the recording of my conversation with Madison, transcribed. Jonathan read in silence. I watched his face shift from confusion to disbelief to devastation. This can't be real, he whispered. It is. She wouldn't. John, look at the dates. Look at the evidence. I hired a PI. I verified everything. His hands were shaking. She's $40,000 in debt, I continued gently. She's been lying to you about where her money comes from. She tried to reconnect with her ex while you were married, and she's systematically isolated you from everyone who actually loves you. Jonathan's face crumpled. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Because you wouldn't have believed me. You had to see it yourself. He sat there for a long time, staring at the papers. Then he looked up at me and I saw my twin brother again. Not Madison's husband, not the man who'd chosen her over me, just John. What do I do? He asked. You already know. Jonathan didn't go to Madison's Thanksgiving dinner. Instead, he spent it at my house, with me, Derek, and the girls. We ate turkey and stuffing and pie, and he barely said a word. But he was there. That evening, Madison called him 37 times. He didn't answer. By Friday, she'd shown up at my house, pounding on the door, screaming about how I'd poisoned her husband against her. Jonathan opened the door, handed her a suitcase. We're done, he said simply. You don't mean that. I filed for divorce this morning. Papers will be served Monday. You have until the end of the month to move out. Madison's perfect mask shattered. She screamed, she cried, she threatened, she begged. Jonathan closed the door. The divorce was brutal. Madison tried to claim she deserved half of everything, Jonathan's savings, his 401k, the house. But her own debt, combined with evidence of financial deception, tanked her case. She got nothing. Her parents, humiliated by the scandal, stopped speaking to her. Her perfect Instagram life? Deleted. She couldn't maintain the illusion anymore. Last I heard, she'd moved to another state, started over, again. And Jonathan? He's rebuilding. Slowly. He joined us for Christmas, for the girls' birthdays, for Sunday dinners. Last week he told me he was sorry. I should have seen it, he said. I should have protected you. You're here now, I replied. That's what matters. Sometimes justice isn't loud. It's not explosive or dramatic. Sometimes justice is just truth. Truth that unravels lies. Truth that restores what was taken. Truth that brings people home. If this story hit you in the chest, smash that like button. Tell me in the comments, have you ever had to expose someone's lies to protect someone you love? And if you want more stories about karma coming full circle, subscribe and hit that notification bell. Trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next.